Welcome, I'm Forrest Evans.
And I'm Celine.
We are reference librarians at the Auburn Avenue Research Library, a special research library, a part of Fulton County Library System. We are joined by J.P. Miller in conversation for her Major Taylor title, a part of Leaders Like Us series. Today's discussion will explore the history as well as his contributions, not only to the professional world and athleticism, but also to the Black experience. Today's discussion will be followed by a brief reading by the author. Marshall Walter Major Taylor was an American professional cyclist. He was born and raised in Indianapolis, where he worked in bicycle shops and began racing multiple distances in track and road disciplines of cycling. And in Little Leaders Like Us collection, you'll learn about some important catalysts for change and African-American leaders, including Henry Louis Gates Jr., Major Taylor like today, Shirley Chisholm, and some others. But with no further introduction, and wait, J.P. Miller.
Hello, how are you guys doing today?
We're wonderful.
Great.
Awesome. Good to be here.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Well, we'll get started with our discussion questions.
Okay.
All right. So, Miss Miller, I'm sorry. Miss Miller, in doing your research to write this book, did you refer to his autobiography titled The Fastest Bicycle Rider in the World?
I did, and it's, I was really blessed that that he had it's not hindsight, but he felt impelled to write his life story and what was going on at that time for him in cycling. So I did use his autobiography, and I think that was written in 1910.
Wow.
Yes.
So you're definitely an avid researcher, paired with all that wonderful history to illustrate and reflect his life. Muhammad Ali had Joe Frazier, Usain Bolt had Justin Gatlin. Who, if anyone, was Major Taylor's rival?
Major Taylor's rival was actually race, I would say, because he was the first in his field to do this. And you think about it, this was in 1896, when he did the endurance race. And so this was only like 30 years or so after African Americans had been emancipated. So there was no other African Americans in the field that he rivaled. So it was really the other cyclists that were white, and the racism that he faced was probably his biggest challenger.
Okay. And he did face quite a bit based on what little bit I got out of that autobiography. As a bicycle racer of color and as a superior athlete, Major Taylor faced much resentment. Other riders would try to run him off the road or throw ice water in his face. Did he ever retaliate when this occurred?
He was a very strong man. I don't know if too many people could have faced the things that he faced. Like you said, they would throw water in his face. There were even instances that he had to start the race last, and he had to come back from behind in last place to come past all the cyclists in the field to still win the race. And just they would cause wrecks, cause him to wreck, and he would get back up, get on his bike, and continue. So he was a very strong-willed man. He knew what he wanted to do, and he did it despite anything that people tried to do to him.
Wow, a true example of resilience.
Absolutely.
Oh yes, according to your timeline, in 1903, a racetrack was built in Australia to encourage Taylor to come down and to compete. How was he received in Australia?
Well, he did several races in Europe, and it was actually a lot better. He was received a lot better there than he was in America, but there were still things that he had to face over there. And like I said, he got several world won several world championships, and that was a first. A lot of us look at probably Jesse Owens as being our first international superstar from the African American culture. But if you really think about it, that was Marshall Taylor, Marshall Major Taylor.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. Referring back to the autobiography, Major Taylor had 7 siblings. Did any one of them compete in any type of sport?
I didn't really see a lot or find a lot about his siblings. And mostly I was concentrating on his story to get to youth. So I really don't know a lot about his siblings. I do know that of course he got married, and he did pretty well in the racing field. He made a lot of money, and he was able to provide the best for him and his wife and his daughter, of course, until the Great Depression, and then he lost a lot of it.
Mm.
Well, before the next question, you just answered one of the questions that we laid out for this interview, but we'll get to that as
Okay.
we go along.
All right. Well, we also wanted to inquire, besides bicycling, especially before and after the Great Depression, did Taylor have any other interests that many may not have been aware of?
Mostly I was concentrating on the bicycling, and he actually, the first bicycle that he received was from a family that his parents worked for, the Sutherlands. And so he started riding the bicycle, and he loved to do tricks. So that's kind of how he got started in bicycling. So that was the only thing that I was aware of that he really just focused on. And this was like, he may have been 8 or 9 or so when this happened. And so, of course, we have to look at the fact that that was the beginning of the industrial era. And so bicycles were taking over the horse and buggy. And so that's how he got started in bicycling. And then he worked at the bicycle shop teaching people how to ride.
Wow.
He made like $6 a week.
Oh, that wasn't too much money, but wow, he compensated for his work and expertise.
Yes. Now, Major Taylor lived for 22 years following his retirement in 1910. What were those years like for him?
Initially, they were very well, because he had a great sum of money, had nice home, he nice vehicles and all this kind of stuff. But during the Depression, he lost it. He lost it all. And of course, I'm not quite sure if he got a divorce, but anyway, he and his wife separated. And at the end of his life, he was actually desolate. And so he was buried in an unmarked grave, and it was actually a bicycle club. There are several bicycle clubs that are named after Major Taylor now. It was actually a bicycle club that did the research and found where he was buried, and one of the bike manufacturers moved his grave and gave him, I guess you could say, a proper burial.
Wow, talk about serendipity and a full circle. It's always important to utilize that Sankofa effect to reach back. Of the titans, we stand upon their shoulders. In the book, there is no mention of marriage or any of his romantic involvements. Can you walk us through why you decided not to include his marriage in that portion of his life?
Yeah, I think with leaders like us, we just want to concentrate on the actual thing that gave that person the notoriety or made them the person that they were. And if you notice, the beginning of each book starts off with a question, and it's kind of, getting the reader to think about themselves and the things that they would like to do. Can I relate to this? Is this something that I would like to do?
Mhm.
So we really just try to focus on the person and a little bit of the background in terms of, and basically try to go back and pull out that piece that a lot of the people and leaders like us, the things that they became famous are known for, they actually started it in their childhood, And so it's something to kind of get children to thinking about what they want to be when they grow up. And so we just, don't concentrate a whole lot, just enough if it's a part of the story or a major part of the story, we'll make sure that it goes in. But we really just want to highlight the thing that made them famous and how they got there in their childhood.
Okay. You'd mentioned many cycling clubs that are named after Major Taylor. Is the sport of cycling becoming more popular among African Americans at this time?
I think so. And just to, tell you a little bit about myself, I tried it. I tried cycling. I was actually in the military, and I was in San Antonio at the time, and I did a 50-mile race. And I wouldn't even call it a race because I was racing against no one. But I did complete, I completed the event. And I think that more and more now I see people in the Olympics, in the World Games that of African-American diaspora that are in the sport. I see people on the street, when you see the cyclists riding, for me here in Atlanta, I see a lot of people riding their bikes. And so I'm seeing more African-Americans involved. And like I said, there's several chapters of the Marshall Taylor or Major Taylor cycling groups. So to answer that in short, yes, there's a lot of African Americans having interest in cycling now.
Wow, excuse me. Are there any takeaways from the Major Taylor story and your title that young athletes may be able to apply?
I think, my main takeaway is the fact that of his resilience, and at a time when there weren't a lot of things that African Americans could do. I mean, this was, like I said, 30 years after slavery, and he was going and doing major things. So I think now, it's the resilience. You have to keep going. You find the thing that you like to do, you try it, you keep going. And if that's not it, then you find something else and you continue until you find that one thing that you would like to concentrate on. So a race to the finish line. Have you ever tried to win a contest? Have you ever worked hard to reach a goal? Marshall Major Taylor understood how that felt. He knew what it meant to work hard and to be determined. Major zoomed around the track on his trusty bicycle. He knew he must be close to the finish line. He had been riding for a long time. He was in an endurance race that was supposed to last 6 days. He had not been in many races, but he was already a leader in this one. With hard work, he would become a leader in sports history too. A star in training. Major Taylor was born in 1878. He became best friends with the son of his father's boss. As a gift, the family gave Major a bicycle. Around and around in circles Major rode. He raced up ramps and down stairs. Major loved his new bicycle. He had not owned it long, but he was already good at doing tricks with it. Bicycles had not been around very long at the time. More people were starting to use them instead of horses and buggies. The owner of the Hay and Wiltis bicycle shop hired Major to advertise bikes and teach people to ride them. At the shop, Major did bicycle tricks in an attention-getting soldier's uniform. People gave him the nickname Major because of his uniform. Making money. Major made $6 a week at his job at the bicycle shop. He also got a free bike worth $35. The owner of the bicycle shop got a big idea. He would enter Major in a race 10 miles, about 16 kilometers long, to advertise the shop. However, he only wanted Major to finish the first mile. Major went to the race not knowing what to expect. There was a pack of riders at the starting line. He was the only African-American rider. The race started. Major pumped his pedals as fast as he could. As he rode, he passed riders going uphill. passed them at the 1 mile mark, and passed them across the finish line. At age 13, Major had won his first bicycle race. It was only the beginning. Major knew he could be a winner. He wanted to learn how. A cycling club in his hometown would only allow white members. He and other African American riders formed the Seesaw Cycling Club instead. His racing victory got the attention of Louis "Birdie" Munger. He owned a bicycle company. He became Major's mentor. Birdie wanted Major to do a short professional race. If he won, he could enter another race that would last 6 days. Major was only 18 years old. He had never entered a professional race before. If he could do this, many more great things could be in his future. Major sped to victory in the first race. Next up was the big 6-day endurance race at Madison Square Garden, an indoor arena in New York City. The race started with 28 cyclists. Some white people did not like that a Black man was racing along with them, but Major did not let that stop him. The race was very difficult. By the second day, Major could no longer keep the same speed. He began racing for 8 hours and resting for 1 hour. His stomach hurt. His head hurt. On the 5th day, a white cyclist who did not like that a Black man was racing made him crash. Still, he kept pedaling his bike. Over those 6 days, Major rode 1,732 miles. He finished in 8th place. This was incredible for someone who had not done this kind of race before. Making history. That race was only the beginning. Soon, Major had set 7 world records. He became the first African American to win a world championship in cycling. He became famous. He did not stop, even when white riders did things like throw ice water in his face during a race. He gave other Black cyclists hope that they could succeed too. Breaking the record. In 1899, Major biked a mile in 1 minute and 19 seconds. He set a new world record. People called him the fastest man in the world. For 14 years, Major Taylor continued to be a leader in cycling. He retired from the sport at age 32 and moved to Chicago, Illinois. Major had earned a lot of money from cycling. Unfortunately, he lost almost all of it because of the Great Depression. When he died in 1932, he had no money, and not many people knew about him. He did not even have a gravestone at the cemetery where he was buried. This important leader seemed to have been lost to history. But Major Taylor would not be forgotten after all. People honored him as a leader after he died. In 1948, a group of cyclists told a bicycle company about Major Taylor's life. The owner paid for Major's grave to be moved and marked. Several cycling clubs host events to honor his life each year. There is even a monument to him in Worcester, Massachusetts. He was more than a leader in races. He was a leader in sports and history as well. And his quote is, "I felt I had my day, and what a wonderful day it was too." Again, we have the timeline of Major Taylor's life from 1878 to 1948. There's a glossary of words that was used in the story. There's also text-dependent questions and an extension activity. Thank you for being a part of this reading.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've enjoyed it, and as also this collaboration with the Auburn Avenue Research Library has been thrilling. Once again, to gain access to Leaders Like Us series and also information about the author J.P. Miller, you can access this information and resources at www.authorjpmiller2020.com. And again, thank you for your time, your energy, and simply being here to share your beautiful work.
Yes,
As always, our virtual Africana story times cannot be successful without great authors and great Black literature like yours. Thank you again.
Thank you.